Evolution, that's the name of the paper.
Okay, so yeah, it does disagree with like
So
kind of
let's
just purely.
establish there are alternatives to natural selection.
No, but they both occur. Natural selection occurs, and genetic drift occurs, and this neo-Lamarckianism or epigenetics
You're
occurs.
conflating the tautology.
Anything that we have like evidence of occurring occurs. Or like we adopt the model as it occurs. This is the scientific method.
So what you're doing is this.
We adopt our models based on evidence. What do you have a problem with about that?
What you're doing is this. You're committing the fallacy of the undistributed middle. There are two definitions of natural selection. There is the definition in which it's a tautology, survival of the fittest survive. I agree, everyone agrees, that lamppost agrees. What we're speaking about is natural selection generating novelty, generating biological forms, body forms.
Yes, it does that.
Natural selection being the driving force from the first cell to you, me, and the kangaroo. That's what we're speaking about.
Do you think the proponents of the extended synthesis disagree that natural selection leads to any speciation? Do you think they disagree with that proposition?
I think the proponents of the third way of evolution disagree.
What is this third way of evolution?
Okay.
Is that another name for the extended synthesis model?
No, it's more than the extended synthesis. The extended synthesis still tries to work within modern synthesis. It tries to extend it. The third way is saying this.
Is that mainstream? Is there kind of
Yes. So let me just explain, right? So the third way of evolution, the reason why it's called third way is this. They are a bunch of secular atheist evolutionary biologists who do not believe in God or intelligent design or creationism, and they don't believe in Darwinian evolution. So what they want to do is they want to come up with a third way. And we have scientists here from China, from America, from Europe, from all over the world, from Harvard, Oxford, MIT, all over the place. What they're saying is this. They're saying natural selection doesn't work, we need another mechanism.
Okay, so they would disagree, for example, if you have like a population of moths, and moths in the city are exposed to, say, soot or sooty environments, and then they develop a different...
That's the first definition of natural selection.
But that leads to the biodiversity.
No,
That is biodiversity. If you have like two different organisms previously of the same species adopting different phenotypes as a result of a selection pressure, that's natural selection. Surely.
This is again a fallacy of equivocation. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. For you to say that darker moths are, say, they're more likely to survive because they were on the trees than the lighter moths, all you're pointing out is the survival of the fittest. Now, survival of the fittest
and the outcome
obviously exists.
The outcome is biodiversity.
But that's not, no, sir. That's not the same thing as human ancestry or any of these other speculative hypotheses. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
No, but you asked like, but you said that like this group of biologists like would disagree that natural selection led to this like biodiversity occurring.
Sir,
are you really saying that?
Sir,
Can you give me a particular name who would disagree with that?
This is a good opportunity to churn out some of the propaganda, right? Even that very experiment that was done by Ketchum. Do you know he faked those experiments?
Okay, but
he was exposed.
No, but there are plenty of other examples.
Did you know that?
I don't know that, but I'll check on it later.
Okay.
But there are other examples.
Have you heard of Jerry
speciation.
Coyne? Have you heard of Jerry Coyne?
There are other examples of speciation.
Sure, but have you heard of Jerry Coyne?
No.
Very famous atheist evolutionist who's always with Richard Dawkins, right? Do you know what he called that experiment?
No.
He called that experiment like finding out Santa Claus is not real because Catterwell faked those results.
Okay, sure.
Right? But assuming those results, sir, do you know what he did? Those moths were dead and he stuck them on the trees.
Okay.
So that very experiment was faked.
Okay, but there are plenty of other experiments
number one,
that
that's a good way of showing how this is more than just science, yeah? We have to fake experiments. But even if it was true, at
there are
best...
plenty of other experiments that show the same thing.
Sure,
so you're kind of showboating at this point.
No, sir. Do you know what? We can move on to other ones, but the very fact you want to move on shows you might have known some of this before.
No, I didn't know that before.
And if you did know that...
The last time I heard about that was in A-level biology, about that particular moth example.
Sure, and how many other sciences do you know of in which you have these types of fakes happening at a mass scale?
Like you get it in medicine quite often, I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
So, what's the reason when they do it in medicine?
There are various reasons.
What? Financial?
Like ego, financial.
Right.
Sometimes they believe that they're actually right, but they've uncovered like
I mean when they do it on purpose. Like
a variety of reasons.
Right.
Like we
the reason when they do it in Darwinism is because of ideological. For example, when we see that famous image of the chimpanzee-like creature becoming into a human being, Now you're a learned person. Tell me this. Do any of the evolutionary biologists across the world actually know what that common ancestor looked like?
No. Well, we can we have a you know, we can have a whatchamacallit, an error bound or a confidence interval of what it
What
must
if
have
I
looked
was to
like.
tell you?
Because there's evidence to suggest, like, we wouldn't believe that it had two heads, for example. So obviously we
Okay,
can make some assumptions
what if
of
it
what
looked
it
like
looked
a human being?
What if it looked like a human being? Well, that would be less supported because we.
No, sir,
it would be less
sir,
supported because we
sir,
know that like
sir,
genes drift over
Sir,
time.
let me just
because
tell
we've
you this,
observed
right? Henry Gee, the senior editor of Nature, the most prestigious journal in the world, he's an atheist and evolutionary biologist. In his book, The Accidental Species, do you know what he says about the common ancestor between human beings and chimpanzees? It could have been any way. We don't actually know what it looks like. It may even been human-like.
No, but it wouldn't be exactly like us, though.
Look, sir.
No.
Okay, sir.
Kind of, do we know that kind of genes, the gene distribution changes over
Sir,
time?
it could have looked
Yes,
like a
we
pig,
do.
for all we know.
That's unlikely, though.
Wait,
you're
sir,
spreading
wait,
such
wait,
misinformation
sir.
here.
No,
You're leading
sir.
people to believe that kind of genes just do whatever they want, or that any genetic outcome is equally likely. That's not true.
Sir, wait, sir. Do you believe that natural selection can turn a species A into B?
It
What if you
well,
believe in
it could do.
microevolution?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not true.
Can it turn B back into A?
That's much harder to do. But
Okay.
yeah, in
Why?
you know,
Why?
hypothetically it could.
Why?
It's much harder to do because like
Are birds the descendants of dinosaurs?
yeah, in a way you could say
Fine,
that. Yeah.
fine. And we're also technically the descendants of the first cell,
Yeah.
right? So, from a Darwinian perspective, I'm going to make a claim. If you just shoot down the claim, that's fine. Classification is almost arbitrary because any species can slide into another. You can have a human-like
No,
ancestor.
that's not
Wait a
true.
second. A human-like ancestor becoming into a chimpanzee-like ancestor becoming into a pig, or the other way around. Anything goes.
No, that's not
You
true.
disagree?
Yeah.
Let me give you a reference for that. Michael Roos, Philosophy of Human Evolution, the Cambridge book.
Okay, and
in
he's
it,
claiming
here's what he says.
he's claiming it's as easy for like the first
What
cell
he,
to evolve
what he
into
says
like
is
a dinosaur,
classification,
as a dinosaur to evolve back into the first cell. That's
classification is almost arbitrary because from a Darwinian perspective, anything can become anything.
in theory, but some ways.
In theory, and
no,
it
but
is a
some,
theory.
No, but some ways are much harder than other ways, though.
Sir, but what you're actually speaking about now is environmental constraints. But here's the point.
No, I'm not just talking about environmental constraints.
What else are you speaking about?
So, like, well, basically, kind of, you can model it as an energy surface. Like, you can model, like,
Based on what parameters?
When you evolve a particular trait, like, for example, the eye, and you adopt a particular kind of strategy for seeing things. Like, for example,
That's environmental.
Like, for example, you know how there are squids which don't have something like what's it called, an iris. They have like basically a hole here. And so, given that once they've kind of evolved that structure, they've like reached a kind of local minimum where any kind of movement away from that would make them less fit and less able to reproduce. And so it's much less likely that they would then suddenly like evolve, into a human, because they'd have to go through kind of these life forms, these kind of intermediate life forms, which are totally rubbish at surviving and reproducing. So yes, clearly there are some
hang on.
movements which are
Hang on,
kind of
sir.
easier according to natural selection than other movements.
And these are environmental.
Yeah.
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 And you-
well,
and-
so
and
but
I
everything's
point-
environmental.
Exactly, that's why I just pointed out.
Okay, so what's
So
the problem here?
there is no problem. The
So
problem is.
so you misrepresented what
No,
that biologist just said.
No.
Because
No,
you
sir.
quoted
No, sir.
him. You
Here's what
quoted
happened.
him
Here's
as
what
though-
happened.
what?
You said to me it's harder for some things to turn into others. I said because of environmental constraints.
Yeah.
Then you said no,
Okay,
and you
so-
gave me examples of environmental constraints.
Okay, fair enough.
Right?
But like that, but that shows that
So,
what I
so
claimed was
sir,
correct, though.
sir, at best, all you're saying is anything can become into anything else if there are sufficient environmental conditions.
Well, there are.
And the environmental conditions on a planet which is
I mean,
apparently
I-
4 billion years old, this large, with this much speciation, is almost infinite.
What?
On a planet, on a time scale of 4 billion years of this Earth, with how long life has been on this Earth, the amount of possibilities is almost infinite.
but that doesn't change that some, even if the possibility, even if there's a wide range of possibilities, the possibilities aren't infinite. Because, for example, there's no place on this earth where, you know, the ambient temperature is 1,000
forget
degrees.
infinite. Let's call it
like
Googleplex. Googleplex.
No, but even then, like, kind of, you know, like there's a certain kind of range of like temperatures. There's a certain range of kind of molecular environments in the atmosphere.
Okay, sir,
like we can parameterize it,
sir,
and it's not infinite. So it's not like kind of, it's not as
sir,
if like kind of you could evolve
sir,
to be
we
like
have a massive-
an organism that's that you might find on Mars.
Sir.
There's no Mars-like environment on the planet Earth, really.
Sir, but that wasn't my point. My point was you have large plasticity going on. Now, when you look at, for example, flies need to know where humid areas are. Now, flies could have been designed to have humidity detectors. There's humidity there, let me go fly. Instead, natural selection has created an indirect solution in which they have a light detector. So they go to areas which are dark, and areas which are dark are more likely to be damp. So yes, I agree, natural selection has environmental constraints, but we already know that. One thing we do also know is that natural selection says that a human being-like creature can come from a non-human being-like creature with traits which are nothing like it. Therefore, it's also possible the other way around.
But it's much less likely.
Sir,
But like, do you agree that
Sir,
kind of the
Sir,
evolutionary pathway of like the first cell to a dinosaur is much more likely than the proposed evolutionary pathway of a dinosaur becoming back to like the first cell?
Sir,
do you agree with that?
Sir,
and if you aren't willing to answer that, would you agree
Sure,
that
no, let me
other biologists
answer
would
the
agree
first
with
one
that?
first. Let me answer the first one first. What I try and do, to the best of my ability, is not give my opinion. I try and give the opinion of leading evolutionary biologists. Now, the answer to this question, according to Stephen Jay Gould, not me, is yes.
No, I'm certain you're misrepresenting
Okay,
Stephen
sure.
Jay Gould there.
Now,
that's absurd.
Okay, sure. So look up this example because we're filming everything, and I come to the hub
Can you
regularly.
give a quote for that? I want to fact check that right now.
Let me give you the quote. He says, back in his days we had VHS. He says if you rewind the tape of life and you rerun it, you'll have different outcomes.
That's not the same thing, is it?
Why is it not?
Because the fact that like
Wait, hang on a second. Do you first agree he's just pointed out something which is different to what you were saying?
no,
How?
because like what he's pointing out is that by chance, like for example, evolutionary, like for example,
Sir, did you know he
genetic
said
drift-
that before I told you?
What?
Did you know he said that
Yeah,
before I told
you brought this example up with me before. Yeah, I am aware of
Right.
that.
So you know that's the mainstream view.
Yeah, and there's not and
So
there's
you
nothing
know the
problematic
mainstream.
about that.
You know the mainstream view.
That's obviously true because we know about genetic drift.
Sir, let's break it down into philosophical terms because you're a philosophical guy. Are we necessary beings biologically?
No.
No, fantastic. So we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It could have been otherwise.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing as saying that it is equally probable and equally easy
Sir,
evolutionary
sir,
for
why do-
the first
okay,
cell
sir,
to become a dinosaur
sir, okay,
as for
sir.
a dinosaur to then become the first cell again.
Let's have
that's not the same thing.
Let's have a conceptual picture game. This is the history of life from my left hand to my right hand, starting off with prokaryotes all the way to me and you in that hat. Right, we have this. Now here's another one which is different.
Yeah.
Between these two, why is this one more likely than any other possibility?
You know that certain versions or tapes, certain potential tapes are more likely than others because, for example, you couldn't have the first kind of life forms being very complicated, could you?
Can you just lift up your head? Lift up your hat.
It's pretty hard, but okay. No,
Just
it's hard.
lift up. I just want
Carry on.
to see something.
He's a footballer.
I just want to see something.
Yeah, that's good.
Your brain is about the normal size as every other biologist. They have not worked out the evolutionary history of the last couple of thousand years, let alone the last 4 billion years. Yet you in this park alone with the same size brain as everyone else,
No
you're
biologist
making a
would disagree
claim.
with me.
You're making a claim.
No biologist would
Yes, they
disagree
do.
with me. Oh my
You're
goodness.
making a claim that this possibility is more likely than any other.
No,
which goes to show.
I didn't.
So what did you say?
No, I said that some windings of some plays of the tape of life, or if there's a space of all the possible kind of like plays of life, some of them we could imagine them, and we could like have and we could say that those are less likely than others. So, for example, let's take a play of life where the first cell, where the first organism was multicellular. Okay, that's clearly very unlikely, because how can you get a multicellular kind of first life form without having first a single cellular life form? So that's an example of a potential play of the tape of life, which you'd say is much less likely than the one that we had.
That was the point I was making, though.
No, you said all potential plays of that all potential
yeah,
plays.
Potential.
Yeah.
So you can't give me an example that's incoherent.
It's not
To
totally
start off
incoherent.
with multicellular, naturalistically, before you have cellular, is incoherent.
No,
I
it's
asked-
unlikely. It's unlikely. It's not impossible.
Sir, when you've done this,
I could give you a less extreme example that would fit.
Sir, I gave you two coherent possibilities. Possibility A, possibility B. You dampened my example by giving me an incoherent possibility.
You said all playings of the tape of life. You didn't specify all coherent playings of the tape of life.
When I say potential, what else does it mean?
Potential means anything that's possible.
But you're giving me...
Potential means anything that's possible.
But
Yes?
sir,
Is that reasonable?
Sir, if I'm going to ask you about married bachelors, we're not going to have a fantastic
No, but that's not the
conversation.
same thing, a married
It is.
bachelor.
It's
No,
incoherent.
it's not. No, it's not.
Incoherent.
It's not impossible.
According to you, it's incoherent.
No, it's not. No,
You- hang on a second.
it's something that could happen, even though
Sir,
it's extremely
sir,
unlikely.
sir.
Like you could get a bunch of ribozymes, and they could mutate together to form an RNA-based life form, which had kind of communication genes that communicated
is it
between
asexual
different-
or is it sexual?
It would have to be an asexual.
Asexual. Okay.
Yeah, so
Now, sir,
it's obviously
Sir,
like
let's
it's obviously
be-
extremely
Sure,
unlikely
sure,
that the first cell, the first organism could be multicellular,
Sure,
but it's not totally
sir,
impossible.
sir.
And if you're unhappy, I could choose another example.
No problem.
Like I could.
But I'm going to use your logic now. Asexual or sexual? Which one is more better from a Darwinian point of view?
It depends on the situation.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You have a cell, it's asexual, it decides to have children, decides to get children.
Yeah.
Me, as an Asian Pakistani man, I want to get married. So what do? I contact somebody. They say no. You need to have a house which is this big. You need to earn this much money. I need to go somewhere, bribe a father-in-law. Sexual evolution is way more complex and less, from a Darwinian point of view, in terms of fitness advantages, in terms of its fitness, than sexual.
No.
So if you're going to say,
if you're going to say,
wait, hang on a second.
You've just
If you're going to,
the public
but
space of nonsense.
sir, if you're going to say sexual evolution is more fit than asexual, then you need to make an argument for it. But you need.
The argument is that you get more variation per generation with sexual reproduction.
But sir, here's the thing.
That's the advantage. So in certain situations, it's better.
Here's the handicap that you have. You can't compare sexual production to asexual. You have to show how asexual, which is so friggin' easy, leads to sexual, which is so friggin' difficult.
Because the incentive is that kind of, if you have like a group of asexually reproducing a species that asexually reproduces, each reproduction is done by just the mutation and sometimes the lateral transmission of genes.
Horizontal gene transfer.
Yeah, like bacteria.
Which is also a problem for Darwinism.
No, I don't think it is.
It is.
Okay, but let's get on to that later. So
you do know some of the problems, so I'm very surprised that you still
but like none of these what you call problems are enough to.
They're not what I call problems.
But none of these kind of differences of opinion or differences of perspective between different schools of evolutionary biologists show that there's a fundamental kind of like the whole stack of cards is falling down and that we can't believe in any of the conclusions.
Sir,
but like,
all I'm surprised that
I can talk
all I'm
about
surprised
sexual
that you want to support Darwinian evolution, although you clearly
I'm
know of
supporting
examples
the
like
biological
horizontal,
mainstream.
bro. the biological mainstream understands that horizontal gene transfer has been used by some biologists to challenge Darwinism.
believe in it.
No, let's talk about that later. I haven't actually heard of that.
You have read it?
But I'm
so-
sure
so-
once again,
so-
you're
so-
just misrepresenting
But sir,
their views and trying to make a minor kind of disagreement into something like, oh
can
no,
you
we
do
have
this?
an unworkable
Okay,
field, that's simply flawed,
can
we
you,
can't believe
sir,
in it
I'm going to
at
give you
all.
2 references. Check them. If I'm wrong, come back next week.
Okay, let me write them down.
Here's the references. What Darwin Got Wrong, New Scientist 2009. Write that down.
Okay,
The front page article is about what Darwin got
Give me a
wrong.
little bit more time.
Can you tell us what Darwin got wrong?